Okay.
See that?
Yeah. That's it, because they're very responsive, even though they're out of Utah. They've been very, very responsive.
Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Grace Davis, as you see up here. And I'm actually an IT manager for Mecklenburg County. I manage the service desk. It's about 8 of us, and out of the 8, we support about 5,000. Change management, technical change management is a service that we offer at the desk. It has now been moved over to the security team, but I trained that person. So that's pretty much what I'll be speaking on today. Technical change management and how we do it. So for the agenda, you'll see I'm going to do a little change video, and then purpose, change, along with the objectives, the fundamentals, and then show your work, how we do your workflow. So to start out this morning, y'all probably done this before. You do your hands like this, and I want you to close them together and overlap your thumbs. Pay attention to which way you got it. Now the next time, do it the opposite way. Kind of funky feeling, right? Now do it again. I'll cross it over. Opposite. Again. Feel that? First it kind of felt kind of awkward, but now you know what I want, and it's just fun. That's how we do change management. That's my funnest part. That I'm going to show you is a change, like I said, it's a change management video. It's got a little vendor on it, but it's actually a really good one to set up the conversation. Also, if you've got any questions for me during this time, I'm real informal. Throw your hand up, ask me a question. If I can't answer it, I'll okay? You don't have to ask me or how to look at this stuff. the link. And what I'll do is, I'll pull it out at the end and give it to them. They're going to post this to the website, and you'll be able to see the video. And it's actually really cool. It's a little stick figure. I wish y'all could have saw it. Okay. First thing I wanted to talk about is like what happens when you don't have a change management process in place. You have what's called, sometimes we call them renegades. They're out there, they mean well, there's no malice in their hearts, but they're making changes without talking to. They're working in silos. That can lead to poor customer service ratings, because if you're making changes without letting your customers know, without letting each other know, then that's going to put a bad image for you as far as with your customers. The second one is, which is really important to me since I manage the service desk, is high call volume at your service desk. Because if you're making changes and things happen, your customers are calling in to find out what happened, especially if it goes wrong. Like some of the unpopular changes when there was no communication involved. I know if any of y'all have Facebook, I still have friends on mine that are complaining about that timeline change. And then the other one, I love this one. When Coca-Cola made their change, made it New Coke. Y'all remember that communication? That wasn't, no, it wasn't pretty at all. Coke made that switch up real quick, didn't it? So, let's get to the purpose. We'll talk, your change management purpose is what I said I was talking about today, is technical change management. And it's a set process designed to manage change effectively, to minimize your risk, with minimizing risk and interruption to your customer and your services. And see, and I said this as the primary objective, is that primary objective of change management is to enable beneficial changes to be made with the minimum disruption of your services to your customers. You can see all this. I am not going to read all this too. But it's pretty much what my workflow is. It's like if a change is submitted, there's a report, evaluate, authorize, prioritize, plan, test, implement, document, and at the very end, reviewed. That's because we have internal audits as well. We have an IT audit department, and then we do internal audits on our changes. And every 6 months, that's what happens in the change management process. Now, some of the things I'm going to talk about is this is a definition. A change event is any modification to your production environment. And I keep saying production environment because at one point, Mecklenburg County was not only, we're not only managing change management for production, but test. When I took it over, it was like, our office is right outside of Freedom, this road called Freedom Drive. I told them I didn't care if you took a test server and ran it down the middle of that drive. I don't want to know about it. Because I think about all the changes that go on in the test environment. I do not want you contacting me every time you make a change in your test. But if you're making a change in production, truly needs to come from change management. And then the other piece is a request for change, a change request. That is a formal proposal. It's not the event itself, but it's the request to have that event take place. Mecklenburg County at this time uses ITIL version 2 as the framework. We're moving to version 3. Some of the members are a change manager. That's the one who facilitates the change. Your change manager, you want them to have a high-level view of pretty much everything that goes on in your environment. What I've had the benefit of having, because I did have a change management manager who reported to me, she knew pretty much a little bit of everything that was going on, had an idea, so when requests for changes came in, she could review the request, know what information was needed, kind of know who the key players were. She touched base with them to make sure that everything was in place. The other force is the Change Advisory Board. That Change Advisory Board was key players within our IT environment. technician side, our server team. Any unit within our department had a member on that change advisory board. We meet every Thursday at 8:15. And that's when whoever's requesting changes, they come in for that time to present their, their request for change. Also, we discuss any changes that took place prior. And at that time, that gives everyone a chance to talk about what changes are going on. If anything else in the environment, you get questions asked, because there may be things going on that each other doesn't know about. This is the time to bring it to it.
Right. The change initiators, are those departmental representatives, or the IT staff?
They're IT staff, they're actually the support technicians.
Support technicians that are responsible for certain lines of business?
And then the change customer. Members of different advisors, and different members throughout Mecklenburg County, who are also part of the board, they call in on our Thursday meetings. They get to sit in and listen to see what's happening. Also, your change customer is who that change initiator is getting ready to make that change for, who they're representing. Now, here's where the difference is. Mecklenburg County right now has 5 change types. Me explaining those, I go into detail forever on this. That's why we're going to version 3. Standard, no approval. Those are like your Windows updates, your virus updates. They're reoccurring. So you don't want to have that person have to submit one every time. Just put this on the board. We know this is going to happen. When Windows sends out their updates on, what is it, third Thursday or something like that. I know that's when we meet about it. We implement them on that following Monday. We meet on them that Thursday, implement them that Monday. That would be a standard. A normal one would be if, for example, you're bringing in a new application or a new service. That's when you would involve not only your change manager, but your change board. And that's what comes to those Thursday meetings, is those types of requests. And then emergency, of course, server update. You got a service that's down, high business impact. You need to reboot a server because this is going on. At that time, they submit the change. It goes to the change manager. They send it out to the change board. You may or may not have a time for them to approve or deny, but at least they know what's getting ready to take place. This is what I was talking about when I said I was going to discuss the workflow. That's a pretty picture. Okay. Request for change, impact analysis, then approve or deny, impact analysis, and review report. Now I'm going to break it down together. The request for change, that comes from your change initiator. They raise the issue that a change in production is going to be needed. The next one is the impact and analysis. This is where, at this time, it still hasn't been a formal request, because we use Magic as our incident management software, and that's where our change module is. So they haven't submitted it to the change manager yet for review or anything. But when you get to the second piece, this is where if you're the change initiator and you need a resource to complete this change, that's when this is negotiated. Also, communication, the second part, that's when that is done as well. You need to communicate to the customer, we're getting ready to take care of this. That is when this takes place.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Yeah. I'm just not thinking, your server reboot, an emergency server reboot. For one thing, it's not really you're not really changing anything. And usually in an emergency, it seems like the support team should be the ones. They need to notify whoever the users are. And sometimes your Exchange server's bogged down and you need to restart it. You don't want it to wait for a board to decide if it needs to be restarted. You would like to resolve the problem now and then, okay, explain why.
And see, that's what I was saying. They don't have to wait on the board to approve or deny, but they do have to let them know that we're getting ready to reboot that server. Because then at that time, that change manager now communicates to the other team, especially to the desk, to let them know we're getting ready to bring this service down, and this is the next step. But also, another piece of that is the person who's actually working on that issue, their manager is who's doing the communicating. I don't interrupt whoever's doing that work. We want them to continue to do the work. They just let the manager know, and that's who's doing the communicating.
All right.
You notify the customer, the server gonna be an emergency reboot?
Yes, we do.
You send that out, say a specific time on the reboot,
Yes.
what'll be affected?
Yeah, we do, we have another little layer of that one. We have our, I guess, public information. So I have to send out an email, let them know, they can look at it, make sure it's real pretty, and then they send it out.
So you manage the communication? So when someone is interrupting a service of some sort or making a change to a service, all the communication goes through your office?
Comes to me.
So I don't have to send out an email to everyone
No.
saying, and, because sometimes that takes just as long as doing the change, is
Right.
doing the
They just send it
communication.
over to, and like I said, change management used to be at my area, I was the manager, it was in my area. So that's why the communication came over to me and I kicked it over to the PI. It's a real quick service. I didn't review it. English was not my best. So I
So
kicked it over and let them
so
do
then
it.
the PIO is responsible for all communications to everyone in the
Yes.
organization?
Yeah, and pretty much when I send it out, like if it's just affected one department, I say, send this over to Department of Social Services, we're getting ready to bring down your main application.
Okay.
And then, as I said, the next step of that is to approve or deny, and that takes place either on our Thursdays when we have our main meeting, or as we talked about before, that may be, when if it's an emergency. That is all, we do emergency case by case. So there are times when we may need approval of the board, just based on what that service we're getting ready to interrupt. Because, for example, we have some things going on with Board of Elections. That if you're getting ready to bring something down, you need to let them know and let them approve it before we start doing anything, even if it is an emergency, just to give them a heads up. And then the next one is to implement the change. This is where, they keep the documentation. It's already, like I said, we use Magic, so all that information is gathered and captured at that time. Information is stored there. And you put in whether or not the change is a success or failure. Because one thing you want to realize is that with changes, we take the attitude that any change that we take place supports our mission and our vision statement. And our mission and vision is to make sure our customers are successful. So any changes that we do, that is your underlying piece. Is that we support our customers to make sure that they are successful in how they define success.
Part of your change management, do you have to submit a rollback plan?
Yes, there are certain areas on that form that has to be filled out. Rollback plan has to be done, risk assessment has to be done, start times. You will not believe, I would get one when I was, monitoring. We get one at 11 o'clock, they're telling me that we're getting ready to do this change at 11:05. Really? Really? You think so? No. No, that's not getting ready to happen. Because see, you're gonna vet it. One thing the change manager has to go out there and look at the schedule, make sure there's nothing else going on. We have a SharePoint site. On that SharePoint site is server reboots and any changes, when virus updates go out, when Windows updates go out. So our customers real transparent on where we keep that information. So that's, change manager has to go out there and make sure that the change that you're requesting does not interrupt with something that's already out there scheduled. And then the review and reporting, like I said, success or failure. Also, the auditing piece of it. Because every 6 months, we do have an IT auditor that comes in and looks at our change management records, making sure that the things that we have on our balanced scorecard, that we're reporting it accurately, of course, and that, we have all the documentation in order. I had another video. This one was really cool. This one was about change, and it said, our company needs change. And everybody came to her desk with change. That's all you heard. That's all she can say. She didn't explain it any other way. And one thing I want to be clear, the change is inevitable. Technical change takes place all the time. Change management for us makes it doable.
You guys operate a disaster recovery site.
Yes, we do.
Do you make that part of your change management as well?
Yes, we do.
Do you have procedures about when to bring a set of live servers and take it to the yard site?
Yes, we do. They have to submit as well. They do have to submit.
Who made the decision on what should be up? Because in a disaster recovery situation, you cannot bring up everything all at the same time. So who made the decision on what comes up first?
Our security team, and it was based on our customer, our business impact. For example, Department of Social Services, because we don't support the Mecklenburg County, we do the sheriff's office, not the police, not the city police. Department of Social Services is one of the first, their main application is one of the first ones that we have to bring up. And it was just based on each one of our customers brought to us a business case on what they needed to bring up and why. And then they ranked them based on that.
After your BIA was completed, who ranked your priorities? What committee was formed to rank your priorities? Was it all the department heads, or was it a subcommittee formed from the department heads
Department heads.
all together?
Mhm.
You got them to agree? I'm joking.
I know.
That's my
I'm
number.
like, wait a minute, am I being recorded? Yes, we got them to agree.
For the record,
For the record, they all, unanimous decisions went on. No, there was probably folks that didn't talk to each other for weeks over this. But that's how we did it.
At what point in the process are you all brought into like a change to say if there's a new payroll system or something? At what point are you there from inception, from RFP, from?
Are you talking about change management?
Yeah.
Okay, we're not brought into it until the request for change is submitted. That's when your change manager comes in.
Do you have any kind of software for tracking all these changes that are going on? Just for
Right now, like I
information?
said, we use Magic, but it's been out of support for like 5 years. So actually Mecklenburg County is looking for, they got a RFP that's gonna go out in 2 weeks for easy to manage the software, and one of the modules is gonna be a change management module.
I think to follow up on your question a little bit, like, so if you have a project that's changing out a software, like your financial software, and you're going either to the next version of that, or you're going to a different brand or another type. So you just are kind of responsible for the communication when the change itself happens. You're not really involved in the project itself.
No.
You just need to have the project manager kind of report all of the different things. Oh, this is going, user affecting things, basically.
Yeah,
That's what the answer was to
yeah,
that
that's what the
question?
answer is, that's when that change manager is brought into it.
I was gonna kind of comment on his question. I know if you look for solutions that ITIL compliant, ITIL, however you pronounce it, generally they have a change management component that's kind of customized for ITIL. So we use support requests, but if it's ITIL compliant, it should have a change management component.
Yeah, because I know one thing, biggest thing that we have with Magic right now is I cannot tie incidents or to changes that go on because of the version of Magic that we use. So we had to come up with this convoluted way to do it. Create a whiteboard, and it has to have the change request number in it. And then, then any incidents that take place, we attach it to that. And that's how we're accounting for any changes that take place in the environment now, because the version that we use didn't have that capability.
How do you deal with, or I don't know if Mecklenburg County, I'm sure you do in some capacity, deal with vendor-hosted application software as a service, things in the cloud regarding change management?
That, at that time, we usually bring in a project manager, and they submit the changes. But if they have to do a change in our production, they have to submit a change.
Just like any other.
So, yeah.
And no problem
working with. No, there's been some difficulties along the line, just to be truthful about it. But after they get used to the process, you know, and after you explain what your goal is, then I have no problems with any vendors after that. It's just a lot of them do not want to report those changes. They just want to make it. I've got a network service team that like to switch a DNS on me like that. You know what I did to them? I had them, because I manage the service desk as well, I sent some of the calls over to them. They don't do that anymore. I mean, you know, you just have to make it real for them. And let them understand that not only what you're doing, you know, how it affects. And then show them, you know, this is what you affect, this is what that change did for this customer, for this staff member. Now it's to you. And once we did that, I can say most of our teams now are on board. Applications teams have the application side of ours has always been on board.
We're getting ready to do a refresh on our multifunction devices, about 9 units. Would you classify that as the same as a change management situation? What about if you're replacing one unit out in affected areas? Is that change management, or you have to?
Did you say one area? If you are changing a service in that production, then I expect you to say that. If you're bringing in a new workstation, no. But to speak to you.
This affects like the multifunction devices, people use printing, scanning, copying.
It doesn't have to be voted on, but it does have to be a change. So you don't have to bring it to our Thursday meeting, but it's what we consider now an FYI change. Or what it was a standard.
The PIO would still actually notify the areas affected when this is going to occur.
Yes.
So you do that then with switches and routers and firewalls, even at remote sites?
Even remote sites. If you're making a change to a production environment, it's supposed to go, it comes through our change management process.
Right.
How do you handle after incident response and getting back to the users on, this is what we're gonna do to improve it in the future?
Each one of our after our Thursday meeting, we have what's called our after-event review. And if necessary, if there are some failures, then that's how we handle it. It's everybody that was involved in the change or had some stake into it is brought to the meeting, and then in communications afterwards goes out to our customers to let them know, here's our plan.
Two questions. How long have you been doing change management, number one? And number two, is there some sort of pre-implementation measurement that you took and a post-change management implementation you took to see where you made improvements? What changed?
I was thrown in it 2 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, based on who I manage. So that's how I got into it. Mecklenburg County actually has been doing it now for 5 years.
Okay.
Then I know it.
Have you seen any kind of reports that showed, okay, here's what the problems were,
Yes.
here's what the stats looked like before we did change management, and then, hey, here's what we're doing now and how we're incrementally improving?
Right. What I've done is, especially for my level, is shown our call volumes. And I can actually show a measured decrease in call volume based on using the change management processes that we have in place.
Okay.
I'm just curious as some of the logistics of it. How long do you say you have a meeting every Thursday? How long do those meetings go?
We have it from 8:15 to 9 o'clock. Mostly it doesn't last till about 8:30.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, it's about 15
But then
minutes.
sometimes you might have a longer meeting, because you really don't vet the changes of those meetings, you just pass those changes along to the people that do that.
Right. This is the information period of it. That
So-
change has been vetted before you submit the request.
So in a non-emergency situation, if I need to reboot the server because I'm doing an update or for whatever reason, how long does it take me to get that done through this process?
Okay, so you're just updating your server at that time. That's an FYI. You send it in, our change manager goes out, makes sure you're not doing anything, and they get back with you within an hour.
Really, so the theory is that, as long as this time schedule is okay, that communication can go out as quickly as an hour. Because right now, we try and do maybe a week beforehand if we're gonna do any kind of reboots or anything that's service affecting during the day.
Yeah, but if it's something like that, or if you just saying you gotta do an update and it's not, you know, it's not interrupting any business.
Like talking out of school here, but so we just go ahead and reboot servers sometimes, even though we don't tell people. You know, 2 o'clock in the morning type reboots, we go, you know, who's on? And, you know, we think, you know, the sheriff's department, hopefully they're not locking the jail or something, you know? It opens up all the cells. But typically, you know, our techs, we kind of let them, they know when not to reboot servers because we've been spanked quite a few times for, you know, rebooting stuff in the middle of the day, or, oh, we didn't think this was gonna affect something. But, you know, plenty of times on the weekends when we have a lot of folks, you know, working on their own time on the weekends, we say go ahead and reboot as long as we're able to go there physically to reboot the server. Don't do it remotely and then say, oh, I can't get there to fix it. So,
Well, let me also say this, change management is offered in Mecklenburg County during our business hours, which is 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Afterwards, if you need to do what you just did, you do have to submit a change and it is reviewed the next day, but you are able to reboot that server at that time. But let me tell you, we start noticing like every Wednesday, you rebooting the third server. And if it becomes a recurring issue, then we'll have a conversation. Because, you know, it seems like it needs to be scheduled, you know, or
Yeah.
something like that.
yeah, we usually get some, we don't have a change management, formal change management process, but we have a formal communication process that we do. That's why I was kind of asking you about how the communication is. And I'd love to offload that on change manager.
I love it too.
On PIO or whoever.
I did too, because they had me sending them out. And you know, when you have to send out a county all, and somebody calls me back and said, I said is and it was R. I'm like, really? Did you get the gist of the idea? But I mean, I understand. But I understand what they mean. But it's just, I was just so glad to hand that off to somebody else.
Of course, you notify the areas affected, you get somebody to respond back and say, you know, this is a bad time. What's the process after that? And this needs to be rescheduled. At what level? I guess you have to have a manager level to come back and say that.
We do. And if,
You have to wait for the next Thursday meeting to review it, or you have an emergency review of it, or?
if we are at, now, are you talking about an emergency charge?
No.
If you're talking about just a regular change, at that time, I'm going to that change initiator, because they should have talked to that customer to make sure that that time is available, even to whoever, Mary Lou, who sat over there and said, no, I didn't want you to do it at that time.
They're
Somebody,
responsible for knowing that, communicating it, and taking that time.
yes.
So that could, in reality, it sounds like if I'm in the IT department wanting to reboot that server, now I'm relying on how effectively other people are communicating to Mary Lou, or whether or not Mary Lou's paying
But
attention.
you said they're also involved in the meeting, representatives from the department.
Yes.
That time when they should say, wait a minute.
Yeah, and we've had it, like you mentioned about the sheriff's office, they're very active as a change customer, and they truly let us know, no, not at this time, this is what we've got going on, this is shift change, this is, you know.
On your SharePoint server, do you have a electronic document that the initiator has, that they know that, I know you'd mentioned there were certain parts that had to be filled out. Is it highlighted, starred?
In Magic, it's a required field,
Okay.
so they can't go any further to it, they can't submit it unless it's filled in.
So it's integrated into your Magic system, okay?
Yes.
You said you have the staff at you. How did you train them? Standardized training so that everybody's on the same page?
My IT staff are responsible for phones and phone support and email support. I only have one change manager, and she took the training, ISO training. And then also,
I'm talking about the people who take the phone calls, right? Those are your customer interface. Those are the guys who are, whether you spoke, talk to Alex or Jane, you're getting the same answer.
oh,
right?
yeah,
So,
okay, I see what you're
Can you
saying.
talk a little bit about how you train them?
Because I was such a, like I was brought in 2 years ago, because I became such, intimate details of it, part of what my team meetings was getting them on board and having them first to understand the process. So that when they do get those calls, they can explain what changes are going on. One of the things I send out every morning is I send an email letting them know what changes are going to take place that day. So it will be, very seldom is it gonna be my folks on the desk, but it will be a lot of my secondary support team. And project managers as well, and our customer relationship managers.
So are they assigned to do that, or they set their, either the CRMs or the PMs, the ones who talk to them the most often, or they normally the ones that kind of are the initiators? Do they know they're the initiator?
Yes. Yeah, they pretty much understand that process as well. Like I said, since I was brought in, there's been a lot of training and knowledge share that I do to make sure that we know this process.
So two specific, I guess, changes that I'm doing now. We, 2 years ago, we implemented SharePoint as our internet site content management system. During that process, we used a specific workflow whereby content changes on web pages are vetted and approved within departments. We train department staff to do this. You deal with website change management as well? Okay.
No, that's done just like what you're doing as far as the department. That's department here.
Okay. And then secondly, reporting. Report development also go through your change management?
No.
How does that go with during testing? If I'm to develop or modify an existing report on your ERP system or financial system, I'm assuming that that's tested, but when I implement that report, does that report just go out into the system?
It is actually, that's vetted through that, whoever's doing the support for that application itself. So
Okay.
it does not touch our change management process. No, he said reporting. You had a question?
Yeah, is there any system or process in place to bridge problem management besides like remedy and change management? In other words, something is happening, like you said, not necessarily a reboot, maybe an application is having a problem. There's something that keeps happening. Not necessarily that the same user is reporting it, but this, users are reporting the same problem. So is there something to bridge that or capture that in terms of the tickets that you're getting to say, you know, hey, we need to identify what's causing this, and if there's a change, then who would initiate it? Would that be your team, or does the customer have to initiate it?
It's actually part of the reports that I generate and provide up to my upper management. But to speak of what you're talking about, we have, like I just had mentioned, after event review, that's where a lot of times that type of information is brought to the table. We do not have a formal problem management process. That's what I'm hoping for, because we had one, but she was our change manager as well. Change manager and problem manager. Yeah. How's that working for us? It did. So she ended up just being the change manager. But what we're looking for is not only the software that we're going to be, requesting, but also a problem manager as well, someone to take on that service. So to answer your question, no. But if you have something that you keep seeing, he's in Mecklenburg County too. So we're going to talk afterwards. But if you have something that you keep seeing, bring it to my attention. And then I hope I can run reports and research any background on it to see what, so we can pull up the tickets on it. Or the incidents on it.
One question that had something to do with that, what he was asking, is that you said that if somebody was gonna ask that that service would be turned off, that they would have to notify the users to concur that that's a good time to do it, right? So who maintains the list of those people, like something as simple as GIS users, Outlook Web Access users? They could be anywhere.
The change initiator, they actually go to, we have business analysts that are, in the different departments. We have customer relationship managers that are responsible for different departments. So that change initiator will go to that person and say, look, this application, we're going to make a change to it. Who are your customers? Who are we going to be affected?
So they okay.
What would you consider to be your first hurdles when you're moving from not having change change management to first setting up and implementing change management in your organization?
Getting your, to me, it was first getting my senior management on board, showing the benefit of bringing change management to it, as opposed to having the renegades loose and what took place. Then showing my call volume, that was one thing that I definitely brought to them to show, you know, how my increase in call volume took place after I had a firewall change. Boom, this is what took place. This is the customers that were affected. Then I showed dollar amount, because we all know dollar amount make people look. And that's what I did. So that's would be the first thing, is get your senior management on board and what you want to bring. You want to bring a formal process in place. And then get your support technicians. Show them value in what they're doing. Show them that, you know, with this process in place, I'm not trying to hinder what you're doing, because you've got to make these changes. I'm just trying to make this change so you don't get that call that says, you just brought this server down, I need you to do this, da-da-da-da-da right now. No, you've got the steps in place. Anything else? Well, thank you for your time. Now I can go ahead and back up here and have a hot flash like I was having. You want my card? I got one.
Which number?
48. Where's the stop on that thing?